Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're listening to this, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you've probably had a moment recently. Maybe it was in a meeting, maybe just scrolling social media, where you just looked around and thought, am I the only one seeing this? You know that feeling, where logic has just, I don't know, packed its bags and left, and it's been replaced by something that feels, well, it feels soft, but it's also incredibly aggressive.
It's the feeling of being gaslit on a civilizational scale.
Exactly. And today we are going to validate that feeling. We're doing a full system autopsy on what's happening to the West, and we're doing it through the lens of a source that is, frankly, radioactive. We are talking about Conrad Reicher's new ebook. Now get ready for this title because it is a mouthful, but it just sets the stage perfectly. Emotional Labor Fatigue, Marxism by Emotionality and Feminized Oppression, Victim Resentment, Olympic Games.
It does sound like a joke title, yeah. But having read it, I can tell you every single one of those words is a specific diagnosis. It's ultra long, it's incisive, and it's an absolutely fascinating dissection of modern society.
Before we even crack this open, I need to be really clear. If you want the red pill, and I mean the actual bitter wake-up call red pill, you need to hit that like and subscribe button right now. We're covering things today that most algorithms will just bury. And honestly, what we're about to discuss is just the tip of the iceberg. You really need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books immediately and just buy this ebook. It's dense, it's heavy, and if you're a man trying to navigate this world without losing your mind, it's essential reading.
I'd agree with that. This is not a light beach read. This is more like a manual for men who feel like the entire system is rigged against competence. Reicher's whole argument is that our institutions haven't just changed. They've been captured by a very specific psychological profile. He calls it maternal totalitarianism.
Maternal totalitarianism. That's a heavy phrase.
Yeah.
Usually when we talk about this stuff, people point to economics. They talk about traditional Marxism, seizing the means of production. But Reicher says we've moved past that. We're not in the Soviet Union anymore.
No, we're somewhere much stranger. Reicher argues we've shifted from economic Marxism to what he calls Marxism by emotionality. So traditional Marxism was all about class struggle, the worker versus the factory owner. It was material. But he says the left has been hijacked. It's no longer about who owns the factory. It's about who controls the emotional climate of the factory.
So instead of seizing the capital, they've seized the feelings.
Precisely. It's the empathy economy. But empathy here isn't what you think it is. It's a weapon. Reicher cites a McKinsey finding from 2021 that, honestly, it made me do a double take. They found that 78% of HR departments now use emotional expressiveness as a core job requirement.
78%. That seems impossibly high.
Are we talking about basic soft skills here? Because, obviously you can't be a jerk at work. How is Reicher defining emotional expressiveness? Well, that's the trick. It's not about being a decent teammate. It's about performing a very specific kind of vulnerability. Reicher points out this double standard. If a female CEO cries during a shareholder meeting, what happens? The media calls her vulnerable, brave, authentic. But, okay, let's play that out for a man. If a male CEO starts weeping because the numbers are down...
He's done. It's over. He's having a breakdown. Investors will pull out immediately.
Exactly. He's unstable. So this requirement for emotional expressiveness, it's actually a filter. It filters for feminine communication styles, and it filters out masculine stoicism.
It reminds me of that example in the book, the Feminist Initiative Party in Sweden. They actually mandated feeling check-ins at public meetings. Can you imagine that? You're trying to run a government, you have budgets to balance, but first, let's go around the table and talk about our feelings.
It creates a paralysis of competence. But it's not just annoying, it can be legally dangerous. Reicher details a case in Portland that really drives this home. This is a real legal precedent. A woman sued her boss because he asked her to work past 5:00 p.m.
Okay, wait. People get asked to work late all the time? I mean, did he scream at her? Was he abusive?
No, that's the kicker. He sent an email at 5:05 p.m. asking for a status update. She claimed the request itself hurt her feelings. In court, her legal team didn't argue that he broke a contract. They argued that and this is the phrase they used, the intrusion of demand into her personal time caused catastrophic emotional dysregulation.
And the court fought that.
She won $87,000 in emotional damages.
That is terrifying. 87 grand because an email stressed you out.
It sets a precedent that stress is now a tort. If you cause a protected class to feel pressure, you are legally liable. This is what Reicher means when he says the state is transformed. He calls the modern state a lactating goddess.
That is a very vivid image.
It's grotesque, right? But it fits his theory. The traditional state was like a strict father. It enforced rules, borders, laws. Riker says we've moved to the lactating goddess. His primary function isn't order, it's nourishment and soothing. And in this dynamic, citizens become infants who need constant protection. But if you're a competent, stoic man, you're not the baby, you're the predator threatening the nest.
Or you're the resource being drained to keep the whole thing going.
But how do they enforce this day to day? Because most guys aren't getting sued for 87 grand, but they feel this pressure. Riker talks about how language has been colonized.
Right, and you hear these words constantly: safe, privilege, violence. Riker's point is that these words have been totally redefined to bypass logic. Take the word safe.
I don't feel safe. Yeah, I hear that in corporate settings all the time now.
But safe used to mean free from physical danger. In Riker's analysis, safe now just means emotionally comfortable for women. If a man uses logic or is direct, he gets labeled emotionally detached. And that detachment is then framed as a threat to safety. It's a trap, isn't it? If you engage with logic, you're being aggressive. If you disengage and stay quiet, you're cold and making people unsafe.
Exactly. And that leads to the mechanism of enforcement. Riker introduces an acronym that honestly every listener needs to just burn into their brain. GSR.
Gossip, shame, rally.
This is the tool. This is how male competence is destroyed. Riker draws this fascinating anthropological connection to the Kungsan people in Botswana. He says that historically, older women would form these gossip networks to sabotage younger rivals or men who got too arrogant. It was a survival strategy, and he argues that this biological instinct has basically been copy-pasted into the modern HR department.
But why does it work so well on men? You'd think guys would just ignore it.
That's the brilliant part of his analysis. He says GSR hacks the male biological drive to protect. Men are hardwired to protect the tribe, especially women, from distress. So when a woman says, "I don't feel safe around him," a man's first instinct isn't to debate her logic. His instinct is to remove the threat.
So HR is weaponizing a man's own protective instinct against him. You're not being fired because you're bad at your job. You're being fired because your existence is causing distress.
Precisely. Just look at the Deloitte case study in the book. This consultant was a top performer, bringing in revenue. But he gets pulled off a project, not for making mistakes, but because a female colleague didn't feel safe. And the reason she gave: he didn't smile enough on a Zoom call.
He didn't smile enough.
That's the gossip. Then comes the shame. He's labeled as toxic or hard to work with. Then the rally HR and the team circle the wagons to eject him. And the men in charge, they don't defend him because they don't want to be seen as allowing unsafe conditions. Riker describes HR not as a neutral party, but as the hive mind's immune system. Its job is to detect masculine antigens, competence, logic, and just flush them out.
It's chilling. It really is, because it explains why so many guys feel like they're walking on eggshells. It's not paranoia, it's an immune response from the organization itself. But Riker goes even deeper. He thinks this is biological, and this is where the book gets really radioactive.
Yeah, this is his red tent theory. Riker argues, and this is a quote, that leftism is a symptom of mass developmental arrest in the female psyche.
Well, that is a massive claim.
He connects it to biology. I mean, historically, maternal instincts are incredibly powerful. They're designed to protect children at all costs. But Riker argues that when you have a generation of women who delay childbirth or don't have kids at all because of careerism, that maternal instinct doesn't just, vanish. It metastasizes.
It turns into political rage.
It finds a new baby to protect usually some perceived victim group, a new predator to attack, usually competent men. And he actually brings data to this. He cites the Copenhagen Institute for Hormonal Political Behavior.
I remember this part. It sounded like satire, but he treats it as dead serious.
They analyzed a Danish member of parliament. She's in the middle of a session screaming, "Capitalism is rape!" And they correlated her outburst with her cycle and found she was ovulating.
Capitalism is rape. I mean, that's not a policy critique. That is pure emotion.
And then there's the correlation study he mentions. A correlation of R equals 0.899, which in statistics is incredibly high, almost a perfect match between Google searches for toxic masculinity and the national menstruation peak.
So the implication is that the spike in anger toward men isn't necessarily about what men are actually doing. It's internal chemistry being projected outward.
Riker tells that anecdote about the Austin dating coach who advises men to check the lunar cycle before they even think about debating feminism with their partners.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, like we're talking about werewolves or something, but in the context of the book, it's basically survival advice. If you're trying to use logic against a hormonal tide, you're just gonna lose.
And you're going to pay for it. Which brings us right to the concept of emotional labor. That term is just everywhere now.
Oh, yeah. I'm doing so much emotional labor, usually said by someone who is just, I don't know, existing.
Originally, the term meant suppressing your feelings to do a job, like a flight attendant having to smile at a rude passenger. But Riker points out the irony. Who does the most emotional suppression in society? Men. Men die in workplace accidents at 93% of the total rate. Men do the dirty, dangerous, high-stress jobs. That requires immense emotional suppression.
But that doesn't count as emotional labor in the modern sense.
No, now emotional labor just means listening to me complain. Riker calls it the emotional labor tax. He estimates men lose between 50 and 30% of their productive time just managing female dysregulation in the workplace. It's the time you spend soothing a coworker or phrasing an email so it doesn't sound too direct.
He uses that John Wick meme reference. Men are fired for emotional negligence, like that Deloitte guy. But if a man actually shows his feelings, unless he's crying in total submission, he's mocked.
It's the double bind. The book mentions a CNN feature on the kind engineer. It profiled a woman who cried daily at her job, and she was celebrated as a leader for it. Meanwhile, a male engineer who actually saved their system during a crisis was written up for being cold.
There's also that story about NASA. A Mars rover update was literally shelved. Why? A diversity review.
We are putting space exploration on hold to make sure the language isn't offensive. This is what Riker means by the collapse of meritocracy. When feelings trump physics, well, bridges fall down. Spacecraft don't launch. We're sacrificing competence on the altar of the lactating goddess.
And it's not just at work, it's creeping into our hobbies, our private spaces. Riker has this whole section on the jealousy economy.
This is such a profound insight. We often think these diversity policies are about equity. Riker argues they are driven by female envy of male success. He cites a study from the UK Office for National Statistics. It claims that women report feeling guilt and resentment when men earn more, even if the man is a total stranger.
Even a stranger. So just the very existence of a successful man is an offense.
It offends the emotional equilibrium. And so you see the destruction of male spaces. Riker lists all these examples. A poker night in Toronto banned because women petitioned it. They felt excluded.
But did they even want to play poker?
No, they didn't want to play. They just didn't want the men playing without them. It's that if I can't have it, nobody can mentality. Seen with that BBC documentary framing men's chess clubs as spaces of quiet domination that needed emotional audits.
Quiet domination. It's chess. You're supposed to be quiet.
But silence is threatening to the GSR network. Silence implies independence. If men are quiet, they might be thinking. And if they're thinking, they aren't validating the hive mind. Riker points to that viral Reddit thread, I think it was titled, "I haven't hugged my best friend in 12 years." Men are terrified of physical affection with each other because the culture has pathologized male bonding. You're either toxic or you're creepy. So men just isolate.
And that isolation weakens them, which makes them easier to control. It's a vicious cycle.
Riker calls it cultural suicide. He points to the girl dinner trend. You know, posting a plate of cheese cubes and wine and calling it dinner.
I've seen that, yeah. It's treated as this cute, quirky thing.
It's barely food. It's what you'd feed a hamster. But Riker says this isn't just a bad diet, it's a lifestyle manifesto. It's a plate that says, I am small, I am helpless, please handle the logistics of my survival while I eat this cheddar. It's a celebration of being unable to feed yourself properly. But who pays for this prolonged adolescence?
The dependency matrix.
Exactly. The system relies on male tax dollars, what he calls the financial burden of feminism, to fund a society where women can act like children and men are forced to be the silent paying predators.
Okay, so the diagnosis is terminal. The patient Western civilization is on life support, and HR is pulling the plug. But Riker does offer a solution. He calls it praxa, action.
The first step is to stop playing the game. Riker is very, very clear on this. The dependency matrix only works if men keep paying.
He gives some really specific advice. Document everything.
That's how you break the GSR chain. If you are in a corporate environment, paper trails are your only defense against the gossip network. When that "I don't feel safe" accusation comes, you need timestamps, emails, logs. Logic only works in court if you actually have the evidence.
No doubt.
Go feral, that's his phrase. Meeting garages, lift weights, avoid emotional check-ins at all costs. Reclaim male spaces, even if they're just virtual or in your backyard. Stop apologizing for wanting to be around other men.
And the financial piece.
Financial defense. Invest in assets the state can't touch easily. Land, gold, crypto. If the state is a lactating goddess fueled by your taxes, starve the beast. Do not feed the system that hates you.
It's called to sovereignty, really.
It is. The goal is to stop being a host for the parasite. And Riker writes, and this is important, this isn't about hating women, but hating lies.
That's a crucial distinction. It's easy to hear all this and think it's just anger. But Riker frames it as a quest for truth. He talks about the motherless maternal instinct turning into this neurotic, overgrown, authoritarian mother archetype.
It's the mother who won't let her children grow up. And she's willing to burn the whole house down to keep them dependent on her.
This book is, like Riker says, a surgery. It hurts. It cuts deep. But it's designed to save your life. If you are a man who's ready to reject the cult of female-coded leftism, you need this book.
We've only covered a fraction of the data, the case studies, the history in this text. It is a massive resource.
So here is your marching order. First, follow the author, Conrad Riker, at Conrad Riker on Substack. That's where the ongoing analysis is happening.
And seriously, go to Amazon, Kindle, or Google Playbooks right now. Buy the ebook, Emotional Labor Fatigue, Marxism. By Emotionality and Feminized Oppression, Victim Resentment of Olympic Games. Do not wait. This is the manual you've been looking for.
And finally, if you want more unvarnished truths, if you want us to keep bringing you these deep dives that no one else is willing to touch, like and subscribe to the show right now. We need your support to keep the lights on and the truth loud.
Stay sharp and stay sovereign.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.